What lies ahead for the LGBTQ community, and how can we rely on the youth to make a change for the future? Up next on Carpe Diem. Welcome to Carpe Diem. From Montclair State University School of Communication and Media, I'm Megan Coughlin. Joining me today is award-winning filmmaker Robin Kampf. Over the past year, she has been in and out of film festivals with her new documentary called Love Wins, which follows the relationship of an 80-year-old couple who have spent their lives fighting for LGBTQ rights. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, it's no surprise that the LGBTQ community has changed drastically over the years. What are some of the most shocking and surprising things that you personally have witnessed?
Well, I've witnessed all of it because back when I came out, which was back in college, everyone was still in the closet, the proverbial closet. So I've witnessed sneaking into bars and hoping that no one would see us, and hoping once you were in that bar that you didn't run into anybody that you knew from work. So it was a very, very different world back then.
And why do you think now the times have changed so much? Is it is social media a factor? Is it television? Is it government? Like, what has been the big change?
Well, I think it goes hand in hand with social morals and values, and also politics. I mean, we've had a very supportive administration, not to get into politics, but here I go, very supportive administration for the last 20 years. And we've made some real progress on the social movement front in terms of getting basic human rights. So I think social media has helped all of it, media in general, television, film, all of it.
And you're seeing so much more in film nowadays, more people featuring characters in television shows and on social media that are in the LGBTQ range.
Exactly. I mean, look at some of the shows that we have to watch today. Transparent. That's just one of them that comes off the top of my head. I mean, Will and Grace started it, although it's so funny because if you watch Will and Grace now, it's dated, even so, and that was 10 years ago. But
and it's crazy to think that only, in 2013 is when the official law was passed.
It is
for then.
Very crazy.
And even before then, I feel like LGBTQ youth and people in the community were getting more acceptance.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I don't think that there's this public perception is that the United States is very progressive in our social and moral values. And in essence, we were behind other countries around the world that passed laws that protected our rights. So we were not at the forefront of that at all.
And some of your experiences that you have, what was, you think, some tough things that you wish you could have changed, or wish that you could have done something maybe sooner before acceptance was rising?
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this on the ride over here today. When I remember working at a television studio in Central Jersey, and coincidentally, the one gay bar that I knew of was right across the street, and I was on the 4 to 12 shift. So, because I worked in master control. So at midnight when we got out, we'd walk across the street to the bar, but we'd do so clandestinely, so no one would see us. So, you know, that shocks me. I mean, that wasn't that long ago when we had to sneak across the street and go into bars. I think that generationally speaking, certainly students your age, people your age, it's not even a second thought to them. My generation is probably the worst generation in terms of acceptance. So,
and when you say that, maybe parents now who have children or younger friends that are coming out in the process, it's hard because younger kids do accept each other more than parents do.
Absolutely. The kids today, I know I sound like a grandparent now, but the kids today are really just, I mean, and who cares? You know, and their parents are still having problems with it. My parents had problems with it, and my parents were very progressive liberals that vacationed every year up in Provincetown, Massachusetts, which is known as a gay mecca. But we would go up there every year. But even so, even when I came out of the closet to them, in spite of the fact that they had many friends and we went there for vacation, it still was not, it wasn't accepted. And they thought that people like me would have real problems and challenges and be bullied, and some of which I did have. But now, thankfully, it's gotten a lot better. However, this current administration scares me.
And you've been an activist and been an activist
Yes.
group. So what are some things that you've participated in?
Well, we started, my wife, if I can say, we've been married since marriage equality came into federal law, which was 2014, I think I want to say. But even before that, I mean, we fought for civil unions. We fought for domestic partnership. We've been together 34 years. So, I mean, that in and of itself, you know, gay, straight, whatever, is a long time for a couple to be together. And through those 34 years, we fought for domestic partnership. You know, we owned a home together, but everything was separate. We would go to weddings of friends of ours, but you couldn't, quote unquote, dance with your partner. It was a whole different world back then. It really was. I don't know if that answered your question. But
Well, of course, and
okay.
now that youth are coming into a world, well, now government administration is kind of changing from what it was, where LGBTQ rights had just been passed, and now it's kind of in a bit of a gray area. How can the youth stay positive and still look to be activists when everything's kind of fuzzy right now?
They have to run for office and get these people that have made lifelong careers of being in political office, holding political office, because they, as I said before, they're the worst ones as far as fighting for what are basic human rights. It just amazes me. It astonishes me that in this day and age, I mean, my peers who have problems with gay people or transgender people, it's frightening. I mean, look who we elected president.
Do you think it's tough to change people's minds when people are so strict on?
I think the change is going to come from youth getting involved and becoming true activists and running for office. That is key.
I think it's interesting now that some younger kids are growing up in a world where gay and lesbian couples are common. I mean, I feel like even now I see people that I wouldn't, even when I was younger, is like such a big change in only in 20 years. So what do you think people who are now growing up with this government change now, are they going to be growing up in a world where maybe LGBTQ rights aren't right if younger kids are growing up with the current government that we have now?
I think that this next election, the midterm elections and also the next presidential race, we'll see, I'm hoping, I think it'll see a remarkable change, because I think that we go to meetings now, we go to community activists meetings locally, regionally, at the state level, and we're seeing hundreds of people coming out. These are meetings where, maybe 4 or 5 of us were prior to, and we thought, once we got federal marriage equality, that we were going to be okay. But then all of a sudden we've hit a roadblock here, and I think as a result of that, people are becoming active, and that's really going to be key. And I'm so pleased to see that. I went to a meeting at Congressman Pallone's office a couple of weeks ago. It was on a Friday night in spring, and there were so many people. Now, I had been to prior meetings in his office where we had maybe 8-10 people, and you'd order a pizza pie, and that was it. Now there were so many people at the office, they couldn't even fit them all in the conference room. So that's a good sign. I'm very encouraged by that.
And what would be some of your goals going forward with being an activist, or goals that you hope that people in the community start to make?
Well, I mean, for my own personal goals, it's to tell stories, and that really leads me to why I'm here. Is the film is a really important storytelling tool, because when I tell youth today how it used to be, and it was only 15-20 years ago it used to be like that, they can't believe that a gay couple cannot hold hands, or don't feel comfortable enough, I should say, to hold hands in public. So I think that telling those stories as a filmmaker, that's my goal, is to tell these stories, continue to tell stories that that highlight the challenges and the progress that people who have felt marginalized for a very long time, they have great stories to tell. So
I'm sure your hopes for the future would be to take what you've done in your film and to hope that people see that, hope that the youth want to become activists, hope that they can stay positive.
Exactly. You know, if I could just say one other thing, that when marriage equality passed, or not passed, was the Supreme Court ruled that marriage equality was the law of the land, we kind of said, well, you know what, we're here now and we're going to be okay. And then suddenly things started to change politically, and now we're not okay anymore. So we can't rest on our laurels. We really can't. We have to continue the fight.
And it's tough because it shows that progress can, in a way, sometimes go backwards.
Absolutely. It's gone backwards since January 20th.
Have you seen maybe in your activist groups, like, has the morale gone down when the election had first hit?
Well, the election eve, you know, we were all walking around absolutely stunned, and there were many tears, and there continues to be many tears, because we've worked so hard, especially over we've made so much progress since 2007, when civil unions here in New Jersey, in spite of the fact that we had a governor that did everything he possibly could to fight civil unions and fight marriage equality, and continues to fight against our human rights. So it was really scary, and it's a reminder now of we still have a lot of work to do.
You can only hope for the future that things go up, and that people shouldn't take this election and sit back on it and think that, oh, I can't make progress, I can't work hard to keep this going, because and you want that to be the case. You want people to move forward and be able to be in a community that is accepted and is
right. And I'm encouraged by the youth that I see. It's like I said, I keep bashing them, but my peers are the worst.
And you try every day to make sure that everyone's working hard.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and we're going to move on to our package right now. The process of coming out can have some complications, but over the years, acceptance has come a long way. Let's take a look at how different generations dealt with the changing times around them and how they continue to stay positive for the future of their community.
My name's Jan Moore.
My name is Emily Sinessa.
And we're
we've been
together 47
years.
My name is Corey Smith. I've been out for about 4 or 5 years now.
We didn't come out actually until about 1996, and by that time we were together a very long time.
I think the biggest challenge I had was trying to figure out with myself like who I was and what I identified as, because you have like the standards of society and what they want you to be, and so it affected me in trying to figure out what I want to be, because I knew I wanted to have a family, I knew I wanted to get married and have kids, and at the time when I was trying to figure out if I wanted to come out, that didn't seem like a thing that like gay people could do.
We used to entertain at our home, and the kids, when they came, the kids all had parties. We'd be at opposite ends of the room, so nobody could get an idea that we would be close. It was like you weren't...
Like you had a disease.
You're right.
I think just general acceptance starts from there, just not really trying to have prejudice about people or about orientations before you even like get to know who they are or what they're about.
We really only had rights since the 3 years that we're married. Up to that point, you still always were under jeopardizing your future. And the Marriage Equality Act was like a lightning bolt that opened up the skies for all of us.
In history, like the acceptance of the LGBTQ community has been like up and down, but in recent years it's definitely starting to move back up. So like, especially as like a gay man, like same-sex marriage has been legalized across the entire country, so that's a big step, and we're starting to get rid of gay discrimination laws.
We were in Europe when the law was passed, and my son called and he spoke to Emily's niece, in fact, and said, "Tell my parents they can get married when they come home."
The law passed here, yeah.
So
we're so excited.
We were so excited. So we got married November 20th.
And our anniversary.
on our 44th anniversary.
If we are more open-minded and more just accepting of people, whatever they are, whoever they decide to identify as, I think that then there will be a lot more acceptance and a lot more positivity.
We have to find a unity among like-minded people, and I'm talking about progressive people. People care about keeping some kind of sanity. And the amazing thing to me is we see it in the younger kids. They just totally accept us.
I want to see more acceptance and more visibility for people who aren't as talked about, and for them to be able to feel more safe and comfortable in our day-to-day society.
But we have to reach out to, which is very important, definitely, to the younger kids coming out, growing up, even if you're not gay. Just look at it and see what's happening at these centers and places. And you got to get in there and you got to grow up fighting for rights.
Like, what it boils down to is just sort of like, don't be hating on what other people are. As long as you know who you are and as long as you feel comfortable in your own skin, that's what matters, and we shouldn't be policing other people on who they are or what they should be.
Learn your history. Stay positive. Like I said, I've been an activist a long time, and let me tell you, from every single negative that I fought for has been a positive.
I don't think we should take for granted the success we have made, because there still is a lot that we need to accomplish and a lot of people that still need help.
There's so much work to be done, and I personally feel I don't have enough time to do it all. We both feel very blessed at this point of our lives. Never thought we'd be sitting here saying, hey, we're married.
Yes.
A great story. So how did you meet them, and what inspired you to make a film about them?
They do have a great story, and one that represents my own as well, many of us. My wife, Luann, is the chair of Garden State Equality, which is the key advocacy group here in New Jersey, fighting for our rights. And Jan and Emily, myself, Luann, we all marched on Trenton to get civil unions. And then we all marched on Trenton and around the state for marriage equality, unsuccessfully, I will say, thanks to our governor. Once marriage equality became the law of the land, Jan and Em had gotten civil unioned on the boardwalk in Ocean Grove where they live. But then when we got married, and there's a whole long story behind that, and I had known them from that because they became actually national figures, because they were forbidden to get married on the boardwalk in Ocean Grove, because Ocean Grove is a town that is based in a religious organization and is basically owned by that religious organization. So fast forward to when we got marriage equality, they decided that they were going to get married, and they invited me and my wife to the wedding. And I'm not proud to say this, but I'm not a real crier. But at their wedding, I was bawling my eyes out. And I was just so moved by their story, and to see these two women who were together for 45 years, living in suburban New Jersey. Actually, Jan was married and then met Emily, had 3 children, and they lived completely in the closet, including to their own family. To watch them walk down the aisle and get married was just such a moving, it was such a moving thing to me, that at the reception I said, being a filmmaker, I asked them, I said, would it be okay if I told your story? And she's like, get out of here, you know, we don't have anything to. I said, please. And I met with them 2 weeks later, and I said, I need to tell your story. It needs to be told, especially to the youth of today. And that's how it came to be.
And what was the process like making that? Because they're such normal people. I mean, they're not. Yeah. And when I met with them, they were like, people come up to us and say, we're so normal. Like, how are you living life? You're getting movies made about you. What was the whole process like?
It was a 2-year-long process. It was doing a lot of research on them because of the 45 years they've been together, and then figuring out who could tell their story, because I wanted to shoot it documentary style, of course. And they are such great advocates for our movement, and they're such storytellers with such character that they were the perfect ones to tell their story, obviously. And then I pre-interviewed a lot of their family members, some who were readily available and then some that were not. So I ended up interviewing Jan's son and also Emily's aunt. And as I said, it was a 2-year-long process. I followed them all around to various events and shot them in several interview environments over the course of those 2 years. Actually, it was a year and a half, and then it took me about 6 to 8 months to edit the piece as well, because I did everything on the film. I shot it, I wrote it, I edited it, I did it all.
And were there things you learned about their relationship that you had not known prior, like when you were spending so much time with them and going to events with them, that you learned that maybe carried into your life?
That's an interesting question. I definitely learned more than I knew about them. And what was probably the biggest challenge was to take 45 years of their lives together and whittle it down into 27 minutes. And the reason why I kept it at a 27-minute mark is because it's considered a documentary short. And for those aspiring filmmakers out there, the film festival circuit in general is very competitive, as I'm sure you can imagine. It's international. There's a whole subculture out there of filmmakers and film festivals. And I kept hearing that it would be easier to get a film for either in a festival or distributed if it was a short rather than a 2-hour or 90-minute documentary. So I had to condense 45 years into 27 minutes. So that was probably the biggest challenge.
And I'm sure you do Q&As after films and after
Yes.
screenings. What are those like? Do they get interesting questions? How do they act in an environment like that?
People are so grateful that we are there. It's really been emotional for all of us as we travel around and we do these screenings, and then we have Q&As, plus we attend the film festivals, and the ladies, as I affectionately call them, they travel with me, and no one knows who I am, but everyone knows who they are. And we'll have a screening in town, and then the next day in a town, and then the next day they'll walk through town and everybody comes up to them. They're celebrities.
Like
they
local
become celebrities, but deservedly so, because they're just such wonderful spokespeople and just characters. They're real characters. You'd want to hang out with them.
They were great when I met with them.
Yeah.
And what has been the overall reaction to audience members who see your film?
It's been unbelievable. I know that sounds kind of trite, but it really has. I mean, everywhere we go, it's just the reception that it gets and the awards that it's winning. I never thought that this was going to happen, but
And they have such positive attitudes, and it really shows how their love has grown, and being together for 45, 47 years now.
Exactly. Straight or
Yes.
gay, right?
I
Exactly.
think that's something that everyone could aspire to be like. Do you see
Absolutely.
them as a goal?
Well, I'm at 34 years, so I think we're doing pretty well. But yeah, I do see them as a goal, and they've inspired us as a couple as well to, don't sweat the small stuff,
What would you say your overall hopes were when you made the film? Did you achieve what you wanted and told the story that you wanted to tell?
Yeah, my overall goal was telling the story, and just like any other story in history, it needs to be told and remembered because, to quote a phrase from other events in the world, never forget.
What were some things you wanted people to learn? Were there key moments in their relationship that you wanted to highlight? Were there key things that they said that you wanted to be like, hey, people should learn from this. This is how people can stay positive. This is how people can be active.
My first answer would be that I want people to understand how hard it was and how closeted they were, at work, in their own home. That's really an unbelievable story to tell, that someone could not be their true selves, even in their own home. And it wasn't that long ago. So we need to continue to tell that story and not go backwards at all, please.
And you met with Jan's kids, because Jan had 3 kids
Yes.
with her husband from a previous marriage. So how were they during the filming process?
Scott was great. He, you know, there's a line in the film. I don't want to give away the entire film, but he says it so succinctly. And he said, you know, people ask me, well, what was it like to be raised by lesbians in suburban New Jersey? And he says, well, you know, people ask me that, and I say, well, you know, people were, you know, how people were raised in the woods by wolves. I was raised in the suburbs by lesbians. So I just think that's probably the best line, and I probably shouldn't have given it away, but I just did. But it's my favorite line in the whole film.
What have been some of your great achievements that you've made so far? What awards have you won? What festivals have you appeared in?
For the film
For the
or
film,
prior
yes.
to? Oh, okay, because there was some prior to as well. We have won, the Indie Street Film Festival in Red Bank. We were Best Documentary Short. That was the first one. We've won the Garden State Film Festival Documentary Short, Best for Social Justice. We were a finalist in the Black Mariah International Film Festival, which I'm very proud of because that is an international film festival and very well recognized and known in these parts at least. We were in the New Hope Film Festival. We won the Q-Spot Film Festival, Best Documentary Short. I'm sorry, Best Director. I think I'm leaving a couple of out.
Would you ever want to do any more projects with them in the future? Have you done anything with them? Have you appeared places with them?
Well, we continue to, in fact, and I don't know when this program is going to be airing, but we just booked, and I'm very excited about this, the Paramount Theater in Asbury Park, which is an iconic theater, which actually Bruce Springsteen was just performing in 2 weeks ago. We just booked that for Mother's Day, and there's going to be a big Mother's Day / women's event that we're going to screen the film. 1,600 people, and Jan and Em are going to be there with me as well.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Winner of the Best Documentary for Social Justice at the Garden State Film Festival, here is a preview from Robin's powerful documentary film, Love Wins.
And she said, Edith, what's wrong with you? She said, you know those two women are lesbians? And she says, oh no, I thought they were Catholics.
Thank you so much, Robin, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Carpe Diem, where we learned how we can continue to fight for the rights and acceptance of others and how positivity wins. If you would like more information on today's broadcast or any of our other episodes, you can write to us at the email address on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or call us at 973-655-5158. For all of us at Carpe Diem, I'm Megan Coughlin. Thanks for watching.